Hey everybody, welcome back to Out of the Ordinary with Jay, and today I am back with Professor Phil. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So this is a topic I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and I'm glad you're going to talk with me about it. It's alternative medicine, and kind of why do people put credence in it, and what evidence exists indicating that it's effective. I mean, millions and millions of people are sort of into the alternative medicine. I don't want to call it a craze, but a lot of people are using it now. And by the way, before I get started, I just want to say I am expecting to interview a naturopath doctor before too long, which would be kind of a great follow-up to this interview.
Yeah.
But in my mind, alternative medicine, it seems to cross kind of all ideologies, right? Conservative, liberal, independent, doesn't really matter. It has adherents all over. Some people, including plenty of smart people, swear by it and are willing to pay incredible amounts of money for it, often because it's not covered by insurance, but still. Other people think chiropractors were last generation's snake oil salesmen, and naturopaths are just today's version of that. So you kind of have these big differentiating views. This interview is going to not be, we're not going to be about mocking, or I'm not going to be about mocking alternative medicine.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
Yeah, or defending the medical establishment.
Who knows what I'll say.
Right, and I'm also not going to defend the medical establishment. It's about understanding why people trust what they trust, what evidence actually sort of exists, and where skepticism is warranted and is either considered wisdom, or is it bad and it's sort of self-deception. And so we'll sort of start with this question, which is, Professor, many people turn to alternative medicine after losing trust in mainstream healthcare. What specifically breaks that trust? Bad outcomes, pharmaceutical scandals, like there was the Purdue Pharma with the opioids, impersonal care, or is it something deeper? Like, why are people seeking alternative medicine?
Okay, I think there are two main reasons.
Okay.
And one is people who have conditions that require medical attention, and they've tried traditional medicine and it hasn't worked for them. And so I know if I were in that boat, then even for someone who is skeptical of alternative medicine, alternative medicine might be attractive. If traditional medicine has failed, then maybe something, I'm desperate. I'll try anything, so even
Makes total sense to me.
Right. So I think that's one group of people is in that camp.
Yeah.
So they have nothing to lose. They've tried what traditional medicine, and now they're looking for alternatives. Hence, alternative medicine.
Right.
And then you have the people who, some people, like you said, are disillusioned with the medical establishment and pharmaceutical companies, and they say, "Oh, they're all out to make money. They just want to make a profit." And I for whatever those reasons and whatever other reasons, I don't put much credence in what they have to say, and they put their trust in alternative medicine. Now, why they don't think those people are out to make a buck and they're a bunch of hucksters, I don't know why. If they think the medical establishment is a bunch of hucksters, and why are they giving the alternative medicine practitioners a free pass? I don't know. I don't understand that logic. And then I think that you have some people who will just try anything. Some people who are just, they're not well informed. I don't want to say not well educated, but people who are not well informed and don't understand the process, the science, everything that goes into traditional medicine.
Well, who would understand that? Minus, I don't even know if all the doctors understand that.
Well, at least have an idea of the process that's involved, like with new drugs, for instance, or new drugs or new vaccines. People who are well informed understand that all of those new drugs, vaccines, all those have to go through years of rigorous, or at least months of rigorous testing to first, of course, all the work that goes into designing it in the first place, the drug or the vaccine, and then the work that goes into testing it to make sure that it's actually effective.
Well, I'm going to give you that.
And that is able to identify side effects, potential downsides of the medication.
I agree with you in one respect with that. I do. I'm just playing devil's advocate for a moment. But I sort of am a little bit sort of sympathetic to those who are like, Purdue Pharmacy got America hooked on opioids because they were run through the trials. They were FDA approved. Doctors were prescribing them like crazy. And then they settled for a billion or hundreds of millions of dollars. And now opioids are almost impossible to get. So it's like, if you went that route of, and then the rug gets pulled out from under you. So it's like, it's kind of like a little bit hard to believe certain things if you've, when you've been around a time in history when you've seen it go sideways.
Right. But this goes back to something we've discussed in other conversations, and that is how technology can be used or abused. Opioids obviously work. They do what they're supposed to do. Now, if people abuse them, whether it's doctors prescribing them or companies pushing the drugs because they'll make more money,
that's what was happening.
That's abuse. So
I see what you're saying. You may draw a difference between the efficacy of the drug and its use.
Precisely.
I understand.
Precisely. And so it's not that the drug is bad. It's not that what's bad is how it's being administered, marketed to essentially get people hooked on it.
Yeah,
and the other thing is the short-sightedness of the industry. I would bet you anything that when doctors started prescribing these things and the companies were promoting their product, I don't think it was their intention to get people hooked on these drugs. We don't want a society full of drug addicts.
Well, they were ill-informed.
What they didn't realize is just how addictive they are. Now but
Purdue Pharma did know.
Okay,
so this is my point. Purdue Pharma absolutely did know. They purposefully, either by omission or otherwise, the doctors were ill-informed. They wouldn't have been giving this out like it was candy to people. And then all of a sudden, we have the scandal. And what I'm saying is I can see how people might use that as an impetus a way to say impetus to say I'm going to go with alternative medicine because of this situation. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I can see it.
But
but
I think that's when the line is crossed, when the pharmaceutical company realizes, this is highly addictive. We need to inform people, because I don't think doctors were prescribing it knowing that it's highly addictive, or for at least most doctors. As the word got out and doctors became aware, oh my goodness, so people are getting hooked on this stuff. I think that they changed their practice somewhat.
Right. So Joe Public says to that, okay, so what's the next drug that's out there right now that they're doing this to, that they're saying this to, where the pharmaceutical company has an angle, they've not informed the doctors properly, and now they want me to take it again. What's the next Purdue Pharma out there? What's the next opioid out there that is running? And I think that's where, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much, but I think that's where a lot of people sort of end up.
But that's where lawsuits come in. So So the whole idea is the company ends up paying out hundreds of billions of dollars to people who've been affected.
Well, that's
by
great.
This.
But
the incentive, hopefully, is for the company to say, let's not do this again because it's going to come back and bite us in the ass. I mean, that's the whole idea of the lawsuit. It is to prevent that type of behavior from continuing.
I agree with that. The only thing I say is it wouldn't be the first time in any corporate America where they'll make $10 million knowing they're going to have to give $1 million out in a judgment. Still worth the risk, But anyways, I know one of my things, I have just sort of a little anecdote here to share with you that has always kind of stuck with me is I had a person close to me that one time they went to their normal doctor and they said, hey, so their cholesterol was off the charts bad, like just bad, like not even questionable. It was terrible, right? So the doctor's like, you got to get on a statin, like now. Here's a statin, right? And this person that I know was very upset about that. Like, why didn't you tell me to diet? Why didn't you tell me to exercise and all stuff, right? And I always go back to, because that medical doctor is seeing tons and tons of you. First of all, their time is limited, but also they know, isn't it already common sense that you should be eating well and exercising? And now he has to tell you, and it's his fault for not telling you. I think what he's trying to do is saying you're unlikely to stick with diet and exercise, and therefore take the statin because I'm trying to save your life. But this person was kind of, it was off-putting for them, and I get that too. Like they should sort of give it to them. But I think doctors in this precarious spot, knowing that behavioral change in individuals is very challenging.
Right. I think you're exactly right. Is that the doctor says, okay, I know I have 100 patients who have high cholesterol, and I tell them all, exercise, diet,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Till they're blue in the face.
And 1% of them can actually adhere to that lifestyle and improve their cholesterol.
Yeah.
And so I know from experience that most people aren't going to bother going through all the trouble to modify their diet and their lifestyle. So just prescribe the statin. But the problem there is they should still be providing that information to everyone, so that those people who do have the discipline to make the necessary lifestyle changes, they have that information. They can do that without having to move on.
Okay. Personal stories are often more persuasive than scientific studies, like the anecdote I just told you about.
Yes.
Why do anecdotes feel more true to people than randomized controlled trials? Why is that?
I think because they can put a face and a name to it.
Oh, I see. Oh, I know Sue.
Right.
I know Jim.
I know someone who used
Right.
this or did that, and it worked for them.
Right.
That carries a lot of weight.
As opposed to reading a graph you may or may not even understand.
Right. You have a graph, and here are the results. 50,000 people in this trial, and here are the results. It's still going to, when your friend tells you, hey, I used this particular drug and it got rid of my headache in 1 minute. Or whatever, that's going to carry more weight because, it worked for this person, it'll work for me.
Oh, I know the professor. The professor's smart. It worked for him. I should try. I got it. That makes sense. So, are there areas of alternative medicine where the evidence is genuinely strong? Maybe not promising, not traditional, but clinically meaningful? Like as an example, mainstream doctors do prescribe vitamins and other natural things too.
Well, I think that
they prescribe physical therapy.
There's a joke that I've heard, and it goes something like this.
Okay.
Now, what do you call alternative medicine that actually works?
I don't know.
Medicine.
Oh, that's pretty
right. Yeah. It wouldn't be called alternative if it were demonstrated to actually be efficacicious.
Oh, just language-wise, you wouldn't put the word alternative in front of it.
Exactly. So you said, what about alternative medicines that have been tested and proven to be effective? Right. It wouldn't be alternative anymore. It would be accepted medical practice because there's data to back it up. See, that's the problem with alternative medicines, is that they generally lack biological plausibility. I'm looking at some of my notes here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Testability, repeatability, because most of these alternative medicines, these therapies and whatnot, have not been rigorously tested. Peer-reviewed, tests.
Oh no, anybody can slap their name on a supplement bottle and throw it out there. You can start shipping sand. I get that, and there are, I know with cancer patients and stuff like that, the prescribing physician will prescribe them, like vitamin D or things like that. It's not an actual prescription. It's natural. It's something you would get anywhere. So there is that. Well, let me ask.
And there are some aspects. There are some alternative medicines that probably do have some degree of beneficial
efficacy.
Effects.
They work.
For example, I was interested in chiropractic particularly because I remember when I was younger, I had some friends who were going to chiropractic school, and I knew, and I still know lots of people who go to a chiropractor. I get a little twinge in my back. Oh, are you going to see a chiropractor? I say no. But I always thought that chiropractors were 100% legit doctors. And as I got older, I learned that chiropractic is not really considered mainstream medicine. No. It's more in the alternative medicine camp. So in preparation for this interview, I actually did looked into some of the literature on chiropractic medicine, and basically the jury's out. A lot of what chiropractors do has not been shown to be efficacious, but some of it is. Chiropractors can alleviate some back pain, things of that nature. There are some things for which chiropractic intervention is beneficial, but a lot of what chiropractors practice has not been rigorously
Well, to your point, some people will go into a chiropractor they'll hear the popping and they'll walk out, and because there was this popping, they'll think, oh, I'm fixed and something happened, right? And I'm not going to come down on either side of this, right? But I did want to talk about the placebo effect, because the placebo effect can, in fact, produce real physiological changes. Belief is strong medicine, right?
Yes.
And so, if a treatment, this is my question to you, if a treatment works primarily through placebo, should we care how it works?
Right, and that's a good argument. So, for example, I remember when I was a kid, when I was young, I don't know why, I didn't get a lot of headaches when I was a kid, but I got headaches occasionally. When I turned 14, I started working out. As soon as I started working out, ever since then, almost never get a headache, almost never. But anyway, I remember when I was a kid, I'd come home from school and I'd have a headache, and I'd pop, like an Anacin or something. And as soon as you swallow it, you start to feel better. I mean, that was entirely placebo effect. I mean, it didn't even get into my stomach yet and start to dissolve and get into my bloodstream. But just knowing that I had it in me, I started, the headache started to feel better.
So is that useful?
To some extent it is.
Because what if that was just a sugar pill, right? Take it even to a piece of salt, but it looked like it was formed in a pill and you took it, but it did in fact alleviate the headache. Is that useful medicine or not useful medicine, right?
To some extent it is.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Because, but the thing is, when you think that you're getting better, or if you think you've done something that is going to improve your condition, then the chemicals that your body produces will change. If you produce dopamine or whatever, then you're going to feel better. And so I get it. A lot of it is your attitude. I mean, it's the same thing with faith healing. So, if you think praying to God is going to praying that praying to overcome an illness or something other, and it makes you feel better.
Well, then it makes you feel better.
Even if there was no divine intervention, whether God really does exist and said, hey, I don't do that, or if God doesn't exist and so it's the praying is useless anyway. In either case, if it makes you feel better,
so be it.
So be it.
Yeah. So and this is another reason why I think people might turn to alternative medicine, but I want to get your take on it, which is, conventional medicine can be effective, but I have my own sort of segue on that, but it's often sort of emotionally sterile, I guess. I guess what I'm wondering is how much of alternative medicine's appeal might come from, sort of the time that they spend with you, the touch, the being listened to, the ritual. That it's not versus like a 5-minute. Like if I go to my normal MD, that might be a 5-minute thing. But if I book with a naturopath, I'm going to pay more and it's going to be all cash. But they might spend a half an hour with me. Or even an hour, right?
I don't know. I have no experience with it, so I wouldn't know.
Okay. I think there's something there, but I will say this, like as a segue back to sort of another reason that I think people might seek out alternative medicine is, and this is especially true with the internet, but I have actually tested this my own self with real doctors. I've gone in and seen them personally and gotten diametrically opposite answers to the same question. Hey, what do you think about if I was to take this supplement? Oh, definitely, it will help you. It should add some years to your life. It will definitely do this. Go somebody else. You're just wasting your money. You're just going to piss it out in the toilet.
Right.
I'm like, well, now what?
Right.
Like, now what? Right. And I could see maybe people that have had not great experiences with a traditional, MD or DO saying, well, why don't I try a naturopath? Why don't I try a chiropractor? Why don't I try alternative medicine? You know what I mean? Just saying. Also,
I would think if it was, it depends. All right, okay.
No, I was just going to say. So, like many people,
we always tell people get a second opinion, because even for obvious problems for which the treatment is usually pretty straightforward and obvious. Sometimes you always want to get a second opinion, especially if something major.
Well, and along those lines, nothing we're talking about here is medical advice. Neither one of us are remotely in the medical profession. He's a professor, but of something else. So, but like,
physics, not physician.
There you go, exactly, big difference. But I would say that obviously, you got to do what you think is best for you and seek out the help where you think you need it. But like many, exactly. Many people equate natural with safer or better. Like natural with safer or better. Where do you think that intuition comes from, and where does it become dangerous to you, or does it become dangerous at all?
Oh, I think it does, because if people just assume that everything that's natural is safe, then you're in trouble, because there are lots of things in nature that are not safe. There are lots of natural poisons that are out there in the environment. And just because something is artificial or human-made doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. So, for example, you could have artificial vitamin C and natural vitamin C. Molecularly, they're exactly the same. There's no difference whatsoever. So I think it's not a matter of, well, if it was made by humans, it's bad. If it's made by nature, it's good. No, because there are all kinds of poisonous things out there in nature that you wouldn't ingest or put in your system. Yeah. And there are lots of things that humans manufacture, the things that are artificial, that are completely innocuous and wouldn't do anything to you. So you have to be a little bit more
I was just thinking
circumspect.
How great I just literally, this just came to me for the first time right now, is what's in the name, right? Doesn't naturopath kind of feel right? It feels good. Of course. Nature, path. I like nature's path. Like, that sounds good, right? As opposed to like ophthalmologist. That sounds awful. What are they going to do to me? I don't even know what an ophtha is. Right. I'm just saying. Anyway.
Of course. The whole it's
pretty smart.
I mean, anything that has nature in it. I mean, look in the supermarket.
Like, if they
Nature's Own or Nature's this. Right, exactly. How many brand names have nature in them? Because it sells. Because people think it's wholesome. It's natural. It hasn't been modified, and a lot of those things are still so highly processed, it's crazy. But because it has natural ingredients, they think it's healthier for them, and it may be, but it may not necessarily be.
It'd be weird if you had like the name, the word doctor, just the naming convention was changed to like, better life or feel good or something like that. That was the whole anyway. So we kind of dabbled on this earlier, but I wanted to ask you this: to what extent do the pharmaceutical failures and scandals, again, such as Purdue Pharma and the opioid crisis, undermine trust in traditional medicine and push people towards these alternatives?
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I do too.
I think,
and you couldn't blame. It's hard to blame, that because I know, like, in my own sort of health quest and those of the people that are close to me, like, when the crap hits the fan, man, you start looking at anything. You know what I mean? Like, you want help, you want relief, you want no more pain, you want to feel better, you want to be able to do what you used to do. You don't want to be sick anymore, and you'll kind of grasp at pull at any thread that might seem useful to you, and so it's a big challenge, and I don't. Just anyway, it should be a little easier for people to sort out, and it's not.
Yeah, but I think personally, the biggest reason that people resort to alternative medicine is because I think in many cases people are just not well informed, and so they don't understand that a particular alternative medicine hasn't been tested and it has not been proven to be efficacious. They just don't know. They see it advertised, and a lot of people are averse. When it comes to going to doctors, they don't like going to doctors, or maybe they don't have any health insurance, or but they see something advertised on television. You see, like all these things. You see all these commercials on television for this, that, and the other thing for your joints. Yeah. And they just think, it must work. Or you see all these supplements, test boosters, right?
Well, the thing is,
your wife will love it. The thing is, and all this other stuff. You'll feel you'll be reinvigorated, and this, that, and the other thing. And you look at that and you say, wow, that looks like a good product. I could use that. But if you don't do your research and see what kind of testing has been done, is it really efficacious? If you don't really know. And I think that's the case with most types of alternative medicines and supplements, is people see this stuff advertised and they think, well, if it's out there and these people aren't being arrested, then it must be okay.
Certainly, if it was harmful, it would be made illegal. The fact that I can buy it is a promotion in itself.
Precisely.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I think a lot of people just aren't well informed and don't understand, there's nothing backing this up. like you said, maybe it's not.
But again,
but
again, I go back to the Purdue pharmacy and the opioids, right? They had plenty of stuff backing it up, and it was a lie. It was wrong. I mean, it worked in terms of what they said, but they never mentioned like the addiction side of
Right.
it. You know what I mean? So
Well, it's
like, I guess,
it functioned the way it was supposed to function, and the addiction, of course, was a side effect. And people were not well informed. Doctors were not well informed, and it may have the company may not have known it was addictive until later. But then, as soon as the company finds out, oh my goodness, this could be addictive, or there's some other problem with it, it's incumbent upon that company, I think, and I think most people would agree, it's incumbent upon them to make that known and say, hey,
no, I know, but
we have
right,
new research.
right.
We found
I know,
out
I'm
this,
hearing you. But what I'm saying is they didn't,
But
and they
that's-
haven't, and they
that's the
don't
problem.
sometimes, and that's why I am saying
why
that people that
lose trust in
right,
them.
and they
Yes.
right, and when they seek out alternatives, it's totally reasonable. It makes total sense that they might. They've been jilted. They've been shafted before. At least this time, if I get screwed and they told me wrong, I'm just eating an herb, right? It's not some, whatever, manufactured in some lab somewhere. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just saying that is I think that's something that I can reconcile and say, I get it. I think I can. Yeah. Modern medicine excels at sort of, well, I don't know if I like that question. Hold on. Let me ask you this. Do you think alternative medicine fills a real gap, or is it mainly exploiting one from your perspective?
I think it's
fill a
merely
gap?
exploiting people.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you feel
For the
that
most
way?
part, because like I said, the vast majority of it
Yeah.
has not been thoroughly tested and has
Right.
not been proven to be efficacious.
Right.
And so
I get that.
and I will say though that a lot of the practitioners probably administer that those therapies, that medicine, whatever it may be, in good faith, because they're true believers themselves.
Right.
They really
right.
believe that homeopathy works.
I got you.
Or
Right. They're not setting out to be
acupuncture
scandalous
this,
or
that.
whatever.
Right. They're
They
true,
believe it,
They're
yeah.
true believers, and
It must.
but
yeah.
they're not. Again, they're not well informed. They don't know what research has actually been done. They've been.
They might make the argument though that you're not well informed. You know what I mean?
True.
They
Well,
might,
then
I'm just saying they might, because I've talked to naturopaths before, and I'm looking forward to my interview with one.
Mm-hmm.
But they will hearken on to all the things that the MDs don't train on, don't listen to,
Right.
don't know about.
I'd say,
you know what I mean?
show me
This
the
is what they'll do
research.
over and over again, and so
Show me the research.
And so I mean that's what they'll. That's
Yeah.
an argument that I'm sure that they will
And
make.
even if there's research that's been done, you have to look to see
Double-blind, placebo.
You have to look to see who funded the research.
Sure.
Because if it's the company that is producing,
Right.
the product, it's very possible that they have. I don't want to say cook the books, but you can.
But
you
indeed,
can,
but that also happens
Yeah,
in normal
they can-
pharmaceutical and normal medical.
it does.
You know what I mean? So
but you could still.
I'm just saying it does happen there too.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I have another anecdote for you. Like I know somebody personally that they live. They're in rural America. Mm-hmm. They live 3 hours from the nearest big city. Okay. In their little rural area, they do have a doctor, a normal MD doctor's office that they can go to. Mm-hmm. And they're older. They're on Medicare, so it'd be covered. They will spend their own money and drive 3 hours often. Mm-hmm. If they're having some ailment, they'll do it often, to drive to the big city to pay cash for the naturopath.
Wow.
How do you explain that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to explain that. I mean,
Well, it's all the factors we've already discussed.
Yeah, I think,
whether it's
you know,
distrust of the medical establishment
Yeah.
and the pharmaceutical companies, or
And I think
if it's people who have just been hoodwinked by salesmen.
Well, and I know they've been talking with this
salesmen.
I know in
or if
talking
it's
with this
been-
person that they really value the personal touch and that customer service.
Yeah,
and
that's
also
a big
there's
part of
and
it.
also it's kind of like I in talking with them a little bit, they've also sort of got this mindset like you get what you pay for. So the fact that I'm writing these excruciating checks of my own money, as opposed to just the government paying for whatever, right? I'm getting better care because it's costing me. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like, it's like if I spend whatever, someone gives me a car, or I give all my money away to buy a car. Well, this car is more valuable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know. It's a weird. It's an interesting situation, but because I've had the conversation. I'm like, wow. I'm like, but you have a doctor like right next to you. You don't have to drive 3 hours, and it's covered. And you know what I mean? You're $50 versus $500 or whatever she's paying an hour. It's a lot of money.
Part of that is also probably, I don't know this individual.
Yeah.
I don't know what kinds of medical issues this person is facing.
Yeah.
But part of it is also, I know I'm not going to like what the doctor tells me. But if I go to the naturopath or whatever,
tell me what I want to hear.
They'll tell me what I want to hear, and they'll give me something that I drink. If I go to the doctor, they're going to say you need surgery, or you need to go on blood pressure medication, or you need to do this, that, or the
or
other
maybe
thing.
even be more terse versus more customer service centric.
Yeah.
Right.
But if I go to the alternative medicine, they're going to say, here, drink this, take this vitamin. It's going to be easier. Whatever remedy they have is going to be easier for me to literally swallow than what the doctor is going to tell me. It's like, how do I lose weight? How do you lose weight? Diet and exercise. People don't want to hear that.
Magic pill.
They want the magic pill. Now we have the magic pill, but people are always looking for the easiest way out. It's human nature.
See, now here's the thing. That's a great example. But let me give you an example thing real quick on the magic pill. Like we're talking about Ozempic as an example, right? Or whatever I forget what the generics are of that. But anyways, that's the big thing right now, right? Mm-hmm. And that is being given out by normal medical doctors, not alternative medicine, normal MDs. I hope this doesn't happen. I really hope it doesn't happen. But you could see a situation where like that, or maybe with statins, because those are given out like crazy, where it's the next Purdue Pharma, and there was some crazy side effect that somebody didn't know about or research or whatever, and then all of a sudden, so it's like it happens there too, is what I'm saying, and then again, so then these people go back to it strengthens their argument. Do you think that alternative medicine should be regulated more strictly to protect patients? Or would that risk suppressing potentially useful approaches before they're properly studied, to your point? You know what I mean? Because one of the things that the alternative medicine people will say, in particular naturopaths, they'll say, well, this is cutting edge. We're able to provide this because this is the type of practice we have. Normal MDs won't do this. They won't even shy away from it. They're openly saying it has not been very thoroughly scrutinized, but, we think still it would be helpful. You know what I mean? Kind of like an experimental drug that might come out and you're in a bad way, right? Something like that.
I think that things are going to continue the way they've been going. I don't know if things really need to change. Like you said, more oversight of the industry. Yeah. Because as long as these products and medical practices are not harmful, then there's no, I don't want to say no reason to prevent people from practicing them or providing those
harmful
services
than other
or products.
To your wallet.
Right. If they're not harmful, and like you said, there's always the placebo effect. I mean, there are people who swear by these things and they may be doing nothing for them, but due to the placebo effect, they think it's helping them.
I've seen this.
So that's what I'm thinking is that as long as it hasn't been demonstrated to be harmful to people, then there will be no concerted effort to rein in the industry.
Well, there have been cases, though, where it has been harmful to people already. Maybe it just hasn't occurred at such a massive scale yet. But, again, this is sort of anecdotal, but there have been cases where you'll have somebody that's, got a really bad cancer diagnosis, right? And they're so afraid of chemo, or, sort of afraid of radiation. And those are big words, right? Chemicals and radiation sound awful, right? They're so afraid of that they'll go to an alternative medicine and get things that really don't end up working for their cancer.
Right.
And so there is real harm there. You've seen it, big struggles between families where, the mother, say, has a bad cancer diagnosis and the father and the kids feel one way, but the mom's like, no, I'm sticking to this alternative medicine, and then it creates a lot of friction. So real damage can be done Whereas if they had just gone in, I think I could be totally wrong here, but I think this is what happened to Steve Jobs of Apple Computer, is he had a cancer diagnosis, and I think rather than go with a traditional medicine, he went sort of a more alternative route. And by time he was willing to go the more traditional route, it was too late. It had grown to a point.
I think,
so anyway.
Okay, for that particular instance, I think if the person makes a decision on their own, there's no criminality involved. Because the person went to talk to the doctor. Doctor said, you need chemo, you need radiation, you need an operation, whatever. And the person said, oh, wow, I don't want to go through all that. I know people who've been on chemo, and I've seen what it does to you, and I know it's horrible.
But if the reason that they're doing that is because they saw an alternative medicine person that said, that's all crap, it'll kill you, you need to do this, then there's real potential harm there.
So the doctor tells the person, this is what you need. And the person has the option of saying, yes, I'll do it, or no, I won't. I mean, I have an uncle who passed away not too long ago. He was 90 or 91 years old, and he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he knew that if he had chemo and radiation, it probably wasn't going to do anything for him, so he opted not to go on anything, and he died. He passed away a couple months later. But if you have a young person, for instance, who whom the chemo or the radiation could possibly get rid of the cancer, or at least give them many more years of productive life, and that person, the doctor says, this is what you need, and the person still has the option of going that route, or
let me interrupt for 1 second. I was just going to say, if the reason why they're going against that original diagnosis is because they've been given previous or differing information from an alternative medicine provider, that's the problem. Right. In other words, a reason why I'm not going to do the chemo, because I heard this other thing over here, and I like the way this sounds better. Right. And so, but that's still that person's personal decision. So that person says, okay, I don't want chemo, I don't want radiation, I just don't want to go through that. But I do know there's this alternative medicine option that promises the same results. And it's not as well
debilitating and whatnot. And I'm going to put my faith in that, essentially. You can't stop that person from making that decision. Now the practitioner.
There we go.
The thing is that the practitioner says this works. Is the practitioner being deceitful and knows
hard to say
this is bullshit? Or if the practitioner is a true believer, you don't know.
Right.
And so it's legal. It's not illegal. So now when it is a problem is when you have a child involved, and so the child is ill. And the parents don't take the doctor's advice and instead say, we're going to pray, faith healing, or we're going to go with this other type of, whatever.
That does happen too. And sometimes what will happen is they'll become a ward of the state temporarily, if it's that impactful. If the child's life's in danger.
Right. So if the child ends up dying, the parents are liable because the child couldn't make that decision, him or herself. The child was not in a position to make that decision. So the parents made the decision. And so that's a different case entirely.
So let me ask you, though, because it seems like you've pretty heavily come down on the side against alternative medicine. Is that a correct portrayal?
Yes.
Okay. If you had to make the strongest possible case for alternative medicine, what would it be? Is there anything good about it?
Well, if there's nothing else that is, if no other options are available, or a person has exhausted all the traditional medicine options, then I see no harm in going the alternative medicine route, giving it a try. It's unlikely to provide any benefit beyond the placebo effect or other mind. Like I said, there are some, as far as alternative medicine goes, some aspects, some treatments and whatnot are effective to some degree, but for the most part, they haven't been well studied. So it's probably not going to hurt, but it may not really make much of a difference.
That makes sense. I think the one thing that I've sort of seen is that the alternative medicine providers seem to have more of a, they seem to have put a focus back more on holistic living, not jumping on to prescriptions immediately, eating healthier, and those type of things. And I don't know.
And many of those things a doctor would recommend anyway.
I'm with you, but I agree. But I think they've kind of put that's kind of like their selling point, right?
That's
Is that
their
whole
focus,
thing?
right?
And so I think they've kind of put that back on the map, and I think that's not horrible,
right?
And particularly if they've only got they've only back to my whole statin example way back when if a person had super high cholesterol and they went to a naturopath and that naturopath said, hey, you need to do diet and exercise and here's a good diet plan for you and take these supplements, and it worked, as opposed to going to the MD and like taking a statin, and that still did work, but it really didn't address all the other health issues. I could see how that, but your point would be the MD should also be saying the other thing too. So then there's no real, it's equivalent. Basically.
Yeah, I used to have a friend at the gym where I used to train back in Albuquerque, and he was borderline diabetic.
Yeah.
And I think he actually was diabetic, but he wasn't on insulin. And so talking to the doctor said, you need to lose weight, change your diet.
Yeah.
And so this guy did not want to go on insulin. Yeah. And he lost something like 15, 20 pounds in the span of a few months and kept losing weight after that and changed his diet. And he never, at least as long as I knew him, he never had to go on insulin. He said, I'm not going on insulin if I don't have to. So he got that information from... Now, like I said, I like the fact that a lot of these alternative medicine practitioners, that's their go-to is, hey, let's try these lifestyle changes. Yeah. Sure, a lot of medical ailments could be averted through lifestyle changes. If people didn't smoke, if people ate more healthy diets, if they got more exercise, then a lot of things could be avoided.
Yeah, I guess the argument I'm trying to make is, are they maybe the alternative medicine is useful in the fact that the messenger is listened to. You know what I mean? In other words, it's a welcomed messenger, not a scary messenger. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I were to talk to some people and I might say, alternative medicine, this whatever, say a naturopath or whatever, they kind of feel unease if I say, medical doctor, say, a particular type of, physician, they might be like, ugh, sounds scary, right?
Yeah. Well, I think a big part of that is the doctor is doing his or her job. Mm-hmm. And so the doctor isn't trying to sell anything. So like you said, you go to the doctor, it's less of a personal experience. Yeah. The doctor says, look, I have all this experience. I know what's wrong with you. These are the things you need to do that have a chance of helping. And then that's it. You go. Well, you go see someone, an alternative medicine practitioner, and they're, like I said, they're going to sit down with you and take, like, I don't know from experience, but you're telling me this. They're going to sit down with you and relate to you on a more personal level. Mm-hmm. They're selling a product. Right. Their income depends on selling, so they're going to make you feel good. They're going to, you're going to say, "Oh, this person cares about me so much." Can I tell you
that a lot of people that go to alternative medicine providers, they feel like they're being sold by MDs. They feel like medical doctors are in the pocket of big pharma, that they're going to write them a statin whether they need it or not. Because I'm just telling you, this is what I don't know if it's true, but this is what they feel. Like, I've heard this from so many. They feel like doctors, normal MDs, are bought and paid for by big pharma, and that all their job exists to push prescription drugs on you. And so that's, in large part, that's why some people even go to naturopaths or alternative medicine to begin with.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough. Anyway, do you have anything else to say on this?
But what they should realize is that the naturopath, how do you pronounce that?
I don't know. I think
naturopath or homeopath or any of the, they're
holistic healing.
They're not any different from doctors. Mm-hmm. They're selling them a product too.
Yeah.
If they think that of the doctors, if they think the doctors are just trying to sell them something so that they get a kickback from the pharmaceutical company or whatever, then they should have the same degree of skepticism when they see the alternative medicine practitioner. Money makes the world go round. So the alternative medicine practitioners are not immune to that.
Yeah, I would just say, do you have anything else to say before I close out here?
No.
I was just going to say, I am. First of all, thank you for the conversation. That was a really good, sort of almost like a debate. That was pretty good.
It was
We took some good
interesting,
stuff. That
yes.
was super good. Very informative. Thank you for that. I would just like to close out by saying I am pretty understanding for those looking for alternatives to traditional medicine. Primarily from this standpoint, dealing with health insurance companies and busy doctor's offices that can only spend 5 minutes with you if they're even taking new patients at all. In some offices, you can only see the physician's assistant or nurse practitioner anyway. Big pharma like Purdue's marketing of opioids, fad diets, stuff that was released too early, advertising on TV. It's not easy. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying that alternative medicine is right or wrong. What I'm saying is I can see why people look at it.
Right, of
you know,
course.
it's very frustrating when you're trying to do what's right, especially when you're not feeling well and you're in pain or whatever else. You're at the end of your rope, or your loved one's at the end of their rope. And it is your health, which is the most important thing we have. So, I think just it's incumbent on everybody to do the work.
Yeah, do your homework.
You gotta do the
Yeah,
work. You can't. It's a super important thing.
Yeah.
And just in the same way that we've espoused, like, hey, maybe getting or we've talked about first, second, third opinions. Like, I don't think anybody should be taken for what they say. Not a doctor or anyone. It's especially when it's that important. It's worth looking into and getting a second opinion and doing the work and,
Right.
and
Well,
looking at it, really scrutinizing it, and making the best choice for yourself.
Yeah, well, see, that's the key. Do your homework. I mean, we have this information available to us now with the technology today. All that information is at our fingertips.
Yeah.
So do your homework. Look at the research that's been published, and go to reputable sources. That's the key to understand what is a reputable source and what is not a reputable source. And anecdotes are helpful to some extent, but you can't base a decision on anecdotal evidence. So do your homework, research it, use reputable sources so you can make the best decision going forward.
Yeah, you brought up one thing and then we'll close out. But I was just thinking, the one thing that you brought up is, getting out, getting information. I found this personally frustrating again, is I can go out and I can find on any given health topic, I can go out on the internet and find what seem to be all reputable sources and find 10 things for my opinion and 10 things against my opinion. 10 reasons why I should take this drug or supplement, and 10 reasons why I should definitely not take this supplement. That's a really big problem, and I really feel horrible for people. I know, but it's very, very challenging, and I don't I personally try to be very objective in my thinking, reasoning, and research, and I struggle like big time, and I really feel like I've set my bias aside as much as I can, and so often we want to hear what we want to hear, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't want to get the bad news, we want the good news, or we want to know what we're already doing is working fine and all that stuff. And challenging that bias is very hard.
Yes.
Being objective is extremely hard, and then when you can go out and very easily get something that will either support you to the nth degree or wipe you out to the nth degree, it's very challenging. And I feel really bad for people, and I hope that people will just do their homework on health, and I hope maybe in the future things get straightened out a little bit better, and we have an easier go of it as human beings. Yeah?
I agree.
Okay,
Yes.
we'll leave it there. Thanks, Phil.